Hey everybody, and welcome to our early comic preview video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and this is our big show where we show you some of the biggest and best books that are releasing this week to your local comic book store, and you can get them over at infinityflux.net right now while supplies last, so go on over there and start doing your ordering. A very exciting week of books. I imagine Wednesday is going to be pretty crazy because there's a lot of kind of big number ones coming out and a lot of just really desirable. We've got some ultimates, we've got some absolutes, we got all the big names this week.
Yeah, it seems like this week is maybe one of the biggest weeks of the year.
Yeah.
I feel like with both the number of books and the caliber of books, because there are several big ones that I'm still kind of in disbelief that these all came out on the same day.
Yeah,
So,
it does feel like we're getting into, even though it's spring, almost like a summer kickoff of books. So let's get into them because we got a lot to talk about.
That's right. We are going to start with Imperial #1. This is written by Jonathan Hickman. The art is by Iban Coelho and Federico Vincentini. And this was announced a while back. And sorry, I'm going to center that up. That's bugging me. I'm going to center that a little bit. This was announced a while back, and we didn't quite know what this was. We knew it was.
We just got a single name. It just said Imperial.
Yeah, and then we got this with Nova's helmet. And we were like, what the heck is this? And eventually details started to trickle out that this is going to be a cosmic story, you know, kind of set in the cosmic side of Marvel. And then now we know a lot more about it. So the overall story of this series is that several prominent intergalactic leaders have been murdered. And that kind of creates this power vacuum. And that's going to most likely start a war amongst the different groups in the galaxy, because all these different groups blame all the other groups for these murders because nobody knows how it happened or who was responsible. And there do appear to be at least two characters who are kind of working together behind the scenes that are responsible for these murders, but we do not know who they are yet. They're very shadowy in this issue. And let me say that this is not a big line-wide event. Somebody asked me on my video that I posted about, how many issues is this going to be, and is One World Under Doom over? This is something completely different, and it's not an event. This is just a story that is set in the cosmic area of the Marvel Universe. And so far, all we know about it is that it's going to be this main book, which is only 4 issues, and there's 2 one-shots that tie into it. So far, all we know is that it's going to be 6 issues, and that's it. So maybe they'll announce more later. I'm not sure. But I do think that this story is going to set up some new cosmic books later. I don't know if there's going to be a new Nova book. I don't know I don't know who or what it might be. But also, this book is $6.99, but it's 56 pages, and it's split into 4 different chapters. So you feel like you're almost getting 3 comics worth of story in this, almost. And it's, like I said, split up into 4 different chapters. The first of those chapters has Bruce Banner, Jennifer Walters, and Amadeus Cho traveling to the new Sakaar, which I didn't know that the old Sakaar was destroyed and was the new. That happened in some other book sometime. I don't want to tell you why they're going there, but it does make sense in the context of this story. The second chapter takes place on this space station called Fulcrum City, and it was built to be a sort of a galactic hub for all these different groups out in the galaxy. And I won't tell you too much about this, because that's a bigger part of the book, but it does feature Peter Quill asking Nova to help solve these murders, because again, there have been several murders, and I think they maybe all happened at the same time or very close to each other. So they're trying to figure out who did this. So Peter Quill needs Nova's help. And then it's chapters 3 and 4 where things really get going. And I don't want to tell you anything about that because I don't want to spoil anything. But I will say that we do find out how the murders happened. We just don't know who was responsible for them.
Yeah.
So we find out that much.
We're led to believe one thing, but it's still yet to be seen if that's true or people putting blame on people
That's right.
and
Yeah.
setting them up and stuff. But there is action in this. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
just like
Yeah.
them going around pondering what's going on.
Yeah.
There's action. There's really good kind of world building.
Mm-hmm.
I think they said this will kind of shake up the galactic side of Marvel,
Yeah.
which I think is good. It's kind of been on the down low for a little while.
Yeah. We haven't had a lot of cosmic stuff lately.
But it's cool that you do get, the Hulks in here. You get Wakanda. You get the Shi'ar.
Yeah,
You
and
get
the
the Kree.
Yeah.
And those people who have horses for head. They've got
Is
the
that
horse.
is that Beta Ray Bill's people
No,
or no?
because when he's not like that,
Yeah, that's
he's a
right.
little bald
That's right.
guy.
Yeah, it does have a group of people who literally look like anthropomorphic horses.
Yeah.
But I don't know who they are.
But it's
Let us
cool
know
to
if
see
you
them
do.
all together,
Yep.
like gladiators in here, which
Uh-huh.
is cool to see. It has a little bit of feelings of like the Annihilation
Yeah.
time frame with all of those characters kind of interacting.
Yeah, because somebody asked me, is this going to be something like Annihilation? And I said, it does feel like it could be pretty epic, but nowhere near as big.
Mhm.
At least not right now. Like I said, we only know about 6 issues. So definitely not as big as Annihilation, but it does have that cosmic flavor to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a lot of action in the last 2 chapters of the book, and that's where things get crazy.
Mhm.
And that's where, and there's like almost like the last panel is where it's like, oh, this is where the story is starting right here. Now we're really in for a treat. But I loved this. There was a big question mark over this when they first announced it. I was like, what the heck is this? And it's a cosmic book, but what's it going to involve? I'm not really sure. I'm kind of iffy on this. I loved this so much. This is my pick of the week. I just thought it was great. And, the artwork is really good. Ivan Coelho and Federico Vicentini both. They make everybody look cool. You guys have probably seen, some of the preview images and stuff with Hulk wearing his like Planet Hulk gladiator stuff, but She-Hulk is wearing something with she's got a big sword.
Yeah.
Braun looks like he's like a fighter out of an RPG. Like all that bit is really cool. It's good to have Nova, Richard Rider back. I mean, everything about this is great. And where this is gonna go and how big this is gonna be, only time will tell, But I really want to read the next issue.
I'm good for whatever they're setting up if
Yeah.
it feels like this.
Yeah, wherever this is going, if every other issue is as good as this, then I am on board.
Yeah.
Like this has my highest recommendation possible. I loved it. So we have our A cover right here, and then we got a lot of cool variants. This is the Peach Momoko variant with She-Hulk, and that's kind of what she looks like in there with her big sword. We have a Scotty Young Nova. I love that. This is the Garon variant with a bunch of the players in that. This is the 80 Granov variant with just a stoic looking gladiator
It's like
Hulk.
that's if he had an office, that's the big portrait that
Right,
we're hanging up
yeah.
in his office.
This is the Mercado Lady Deathbird. Not Deathstrike, right?
Right.
Lady Deathstrike. No, this is just Deathbird.
Deathbird.
Lady
yeah.
Deathstrike is the Wolverine villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get those two mixed up. The Todd Knox Star-Lord iconic variant.
It's also interesting to see Star-Lord, but none of the other Guardians are there.
Yeah, that's the only thing missing, it feels like, is none of the Guardians are there. Where are they at?
Yeah.
I could use some Drax. We have the 1 in 25 Alessandro Capuccio variant that we're selling for $18.99. This is the 1 in 50 Jim Lee Hidden Gem variant that we're selling for $49.99 with the Imperial Guard. Although the rest of the Imperial Guard aren't in it, actually, maybe a couple of them are, but not the whole group there.
Mainly Gladiator.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even play a huge role. He's just
not yet
there. Yeah.
This is the 1 in 100 Miguel Mercado Virgin variant. We're selling that one for $74.99. And then this is the 1 in 100 80 Granov Virgin variant, and we are selling that one for $99.99, just under $100. So I absolutely love this. Yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes Hickman books can be a little daunting going into them because they're very, high thought, high level. I felt like this one was the most like comic booky. It had action.
Yeah.
It has a very thought-provoking story and setup, but it wasn't like how some of the X-Men stuff got or some of the Avengers stuff got.
No, this is just like, hey, there's some galactic leaders that got murdered. Who done it? I don't know, but it's gonna start a war. Like, is it? Like, it's not overly complicated.
Right. Well, next up, I've got a pretty big one for this week. This is Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion at #1. this is our long-awaited first crossover between the Ultimate Universe and kind of the 616 universe. Although it kind of with Miles, you kind of bypass the 616 from Ultimate and go into the new Ultimate Universe. Even though he does bring up kind of because I've always kind of wondered. I know that they because of Secret Wars
Mhm.
that his memories are a little hazy, and I do like that he does bring up in this about like I know I'm from another place,
Yeah.
but I thought that was cool. But this is by Denise Camp and Cody Ziegler, so that's your writers of The Ultimates and Miles Morales, and the artist by Jonas Scharf. And this is interesting. So we didn't really know going into this the proportions of this. The ratio of Ultimate Universe to 616 Miles, all of that. I'll say this is a very Miles heavy
Yeah.
series. Um, so you probably saw if you read the free comic book day book that had the Ultimate story in it. We got reminded about the time the Maker came to Miles, basically saying, "Hey, we're both from the same place. We're the last two survivors of our previous universe. Here's my card. You can use this card if you want to kind of start a new life
Yeah.
in my universe that I'm making." Um, and then we saw in the free comic book day that Miles's little sister Billy got a hold of the card and big flash of light. Well, this picks up right there. Now this is in like kind of current continuity. Miles is wearing his vibranium
Yeah.
suit. It all seems very kind of relevant to what's going on in his series, but he does when that happens with Billy, he immediately dives in after her. So
Right.
it doesn't take long to get into this. Um, so we do know as they are going through this portal, they do get split up, and that's going to be kind of the main crux of this story. Is Miles trying to find his little sister now that he has found himself in the new Ultimate Universe? We do see Peter Parker and Richard Parker, father and son, both Spider-Men, uh, kind of like out on patrol. They're fighting a villain. You'll see who the villain is on one of the covers, but it is pretty fun. And it's a villain when Miles shows up, he's familiar with,
Yeah.
even though no one else is. He's like, I kind of know how to deal with this. But without getting into too much detail, and what I do like about it, they don't get into too much detail either. There's not a long-winded Miles explains where
Yeah.
he's from and everything. It's kind of just like a few minutes later, and they're like, "Wow, that's quite the
Yeah.
story."
Wow.
But they are going to help him look for Miles's little sister, and there's not too much more other than that. You can tell they are setting up stuff. Other people are aware that maybe a portal opened up and someone came through it. That seems like maybe that's going to lead into some bigger stuff. But this is a pretty Miles and Peter and Richard centric story of them just looking around the city.
Mhm.
Um, they maybe don't do it the most efficient way.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. They're just like peeking in windows trying to
Yeah,
find her. Like, come on, can't you like?
this is a baby in
Yeah.
a giant
I
city.
feel like in another comic they would say let's tap into the energy signature and track that or something like
Or
that.
yeah, let's like get to the hub of all the security cameras
Yeah.
and do face recognition and
Right.
all that. Uh, although Miles does have an idea later that seems like the first thing I would have done.
Yep.
But it is interesting, and we have yet to see the scale of this. There are a couple other characters that make appearances in this, but I'll say the majority of the characters that are on this cover do not appear. They don't bring in much of the other Ultimate Universe yet. Um, and it makes me kind of wonder how this just looking for his little sister is going to blow up into this, you know, brings in the entire Ultimate Universe in on this storyline. But all that being said, I feel like this is more of a Miles story than it is an Ultimate story.
Right.
Wouldn't you say? Like
Yeah.
this is not that you had to like currently be reading the Miles book, but this is all from his perspective.
Well, I guess the only thing I would my only rebuttal to that would be that a lot of this issue is the three Spider-Men just swinging around the city looking for Billy. But there is a point near the end of the book
Mhm.
where the Maker's Council
Yeah.
learns that there was interdimensional activity. and they're like, is this did the Maker find a way out of the dome early? Is it some kind of weapon? Is it this? Isn't that? I don't know what it is, but I want to find out. So the Maker's Council, they find out that there are some interdimensional shenanigans going on, and they don't really do anything about it in this issue, but I think that could lead to something very interesting later. So I think maybe, maybe this was very Miles heavy, but maybe it becomes more ultimate next issue when the Maker's Council finally comes in and starts messing with stuff.
There is something else that happens in this. I completely forgot. I didn't even make a note about it. That I'm surprised it happens in here and not in the main Ultimate Spider-Man book. There's something with Richard that happens. I'll talk to you.
Oh, right, yeah,
It feels like that is that how that's gonna happen?
Yeah,
but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a cool issue. It was a fun Spider-Man story. It's definitely a setup issue for what seems to be some bigger things to come. Because there is a hint, especially when it says like next issue, and it gives you like some titles. You go, okay, I see where they're going for the next one.
I thought what was interesting about this is that Miles is the more experienced Spider-Man, and because Peter in this universe has only been doing it for a year and a half, so Peter was the one actually kind of admiring Miles and his ability to swing and his acrobatics and his fighting style and stuff like that.
Richard thinks he's really cool.
Yeah,
and they do note of like, look how smooth he like swings and gets through the city and stuff. Like he's been doing this for a while, and I do like that kind of acknowledgement of he's no longer the new Spider-Man.
Right.
Like he's been doing this for years now. But all that being said, you probably, if you're reading the Ultimate books, are going to want to pick this up because it does feel like a big chapter, potentially in the Ultimate Universe. And I imagine the fallout from this, it seems like the Ultimate Universe has been very well tailored right now, that the fallout of this will have some lasting effects.
Yeah.
We just have yet to see what that will be. But there is your A cover. We have this Mobley variant. We have a Kari Andrews variant. We have a blank sketch variant. We have a Kale New foil variant with a certain villain on there. We have a 1 in 25. This is a Sharf variant, so that's your interior artist. And we have a 1 in 25, another 1 in 25 Marquez variant that we are selling for $18.99.
Very cool. All right, well, next is another big one from Marvel. Marvel has had their three biggest books that they've been advertising for a while all come out this week. It's crazy. I can't believe they did that. So this one is Marvel Knights: The World to Come. This is written by Christopher Priest and the art is by Joe Quesada. Although I think Joe Quesada also, I think they worked on the story together.
It sounds very like, especially at the end. Yeah. There's like kind of a backup pages where they talk about it. It does seem very they both
collaborative
worked and craft the story.
So this book is a little bit hard to follow because it jumps back and forth in time, and everything seems to be centered around some kind of event. But we don't, and I don't necessarily mean like a big like comic event, but something happens. There's something happened that changes. Well, we don't really know what it is yet. I'll say that. It does seem like it's something that
it's a turning point.
That like changed the history. It's something that changes the world, I think, because the first few pages say something like, 16 years before the world to come, and then later in the book it'll say 8 years after the world to come, and then part of it is like 24 years before the world to come.
I think that's what I had a little hard time with this, because it doesn't like lead up, it bounces around. It'll be like before and then after, then before, and it'll go, and so you have to kind of keep track of like, okay, when did this, in relation to this other flashback, did this come first or second?
Well, in the very, very beginning of the book takes place 16 years after the world to come, and we see the death of King T'Challa. That's not a spoiler. Don't get mad at me. That's literally the beginning of the book. That's what the whole story is revolving around, is the death of T'Challa. But he's an old man. He's sitting on the throne of Wakanda, and he dies. I don't know. I guess natural causes. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe there's foul play. Maybe we'll learn about that later. But then so we see that, and that's a pretty significant event. But then it jumps back in time to before whatever this event is, and most of the book takes place before. And we see things like T'Challa's relationship with Storm. We see things like his relationship with a woman named Monica Lynn, who played a pretty significant role in Christopher Priest's original run of Black Panther that started back in 1998. So we see his relationship with her. We see, I think, 8 years before the world to come is a part of this story where somebody is challenging T'Challa for the throne of Wakanda.
That kind of classic. They're on the waterfall
Yeah,
fighting.
just like in the movie, basically. Yeah. And in that, during that sequence, T'Challa is an older man, but he's not as old as we see him when he dies on the throne. So we see T'Challa at different points in his life. One thing that I thought was interesting is in the back of the book, there's like a timeline of various events and when those events take place in relation to whatever this event is. Like, for example, one of them says that Black Panther joined the Avengers 49 years before the world to come. And so that makes me think that, like, whatever this event is that changed the world, it takes place a few decades from current day Marvel, I guess, or a few decades, or at least from when Black Panther joined the Avengers, which in the real world is back in the late 60s, early 70s, late 60s, I think. So it's a whole lot of jumping back and forth between this one thing, and I do want to find out what this event is,
because it's not clear. It's not like, oh, clearly the world changed, and now it's Old Man Logan type thing. It's not like that,
and it doesn't show like desolate cityscapes, like a bomb went off. It's nothing like that whatsoever.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Is this like a personal thing that happened, or is it a more widespread thing? Like you said, like there's no real clear indication of the scope of this and what all it affected.
Yeah. So it's a little bit it's a little bit hard to talk about because you just sort of have to read it for yourself. It's hard to describe because, like I said, so many time jumps, and it's all so vague, and I don't know. I kind of wonder if this event that changed the world did maybe T'Challa lose the throne, and whoever took the throne from him, they used Wakanda's technology to do something. But I don't know. I'm guessing. I have no idea whatsoever. But yeah, and this being a Marvel Knights title, is this canon? Is it a story on its own?
I was going to ask if you felt one way or another about that, because there's so little other things that it references outside of itself. You mentioned like the part with Storm. It's like, well, there's a similar thing in the regular Marvel universe that they allude to, and it's like, okay, well, I guess this happened here, but like you said, it's so vague that it's almost kind of ethereal. You'll have one page of just a scene, and it's like, and this was this many years before, and it's a little. There's none of the little stories in it, the little time jumps or whatever, have give you the reason why you're seeing that part.
Right. Yeah, and it's almost like this is split up into chapters too. There's not an official chapter 1, chapter 2, whatever, but you'll get a little snippet of T'Challa and Storm that took place X number of years before this thing, and a little snippet of T'Challa with Monica Lynn, and that takes place X number of years before this thing, and there's just a lot to it. I'm sure that as the story goes on, it will make more sense. One thing that I was trying to square this with something like Imperial, because when they announced this, they were heavy on the death of T'Challa and what does that mean for the world. But I was like, but the Wakandans, that they figure into Imperial. So and Black Panther just popped up in the new Avengers issue, which is part of One World Under Doom. But T'Challa's death does happen in the future when he's old. So at least it's
almost like a potential future.
That's what I feel like. It's like maybe this could happen later, or maybe this is its own story, and you don't have to try to square it with any other story in the Marvel universe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So if you guys pick it up, I would love to hear in the comments what your theories are about it, what you think about it when you read it. But and I know this was all over the place, but when you read it, you'll see that, like, yeah, this is kind of weird and doesn't make a lot of sense. And
feels like you need to make notes while you're writing it, of like, which they did put the timeline at the end,
right?
But even that is, vague
Yeah,
about, because you
right.
don't know what the instigating act is.
And there is a little blurb in the back that talks about how this story came about in the first place, and it says that this actually has some pretty close ties to Christopher Priest's original run of Black Panther. They
Yeah.
said you don't have to have read that to understand this, but if you have read it, you'll get a richer experience, that kind of thing. I only read some of it, so I need to go back and maybe read it again. Maybe it'll make more sense with this, but
Yeah, and
I don't know.
apparently this was originally kind of an idea back when Joe Quesada was editor-in-chief of
Yeah.
Marvel,
Uh-huh.
which means that was quite a while ago
Yeah.
that this was originally kind of designed. So, yeah, I think that's interesting as well, that this has been long time in the works, or at least them thinking about this story.
Yep. So we'll see where it goes. I'm not. There's a bigger question mark on there. There's a big question mark on this still. Whereas Imperial was like, oh, that's cool. I get what that is now. So we'll have to see. When the next issue comes out. But we have our A cover right here, and we have some cool variants. This is the Swaby variant with Storm. This is our Alex Maleev variant. This is our blank sketch variant. We have this really cool Dan Panosian variant. I really like that one. And then this is the 1 in 25. I don't have the artist. Oh, I can't tell who that is. But 1 in 25 that we're selling for $19.99. That looks really, really cool. This is the this what is this again? The surprise variant?
Yeah, this was we didn't order it. It was a
Oh, right.
surprise that came in.
And it's polybagged.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything
There's
in
nothing
it.
in it.
Yeah.
They'll do that from time to time, just with internally company.
Yeah.
They'll polybag things.
And we're selling this one for $19.99 as well.
Well, next up, I've got Absolute Green Lantern number 3. I really like this issue, and I'm really enjoying this series so far because it does feel, this second wave, I think we talked about it before, of the Absolute books are so much different than,
Yeah.
the first one's not that they don't have their differences from their main universe counterparts, but these, I feel like, are even wilder than those. And this Green Lantern version, it's definitely I don't know what to expect. I know the words they're using, I know all that, but the way it's interpreted is so different. So this issue focuses on John Stewart mostly, and I think it's cool because we've kind of had spotlights on different characters in this. The first one was Hal Jordan. We got a more Joe Mullins issue, and this one being John Stewart. We saw in the previous one that he held up a ring at the end of the last one, a gold ring, and was like, I have an idea. And we were kind of speculating, what does that mean? Does he know how to craft a Green Lantern ring?
Right, that's what I thought. It's like, is that a Green Lantern ring, but it's gold? I don't understand. Yeah.
But I'll say this does a great job at immediately explaining what all that was about, and it completely makes sense.
It makes sense, and when I realized what it was, I felt stupid for not realizing it before.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, yes, of course it's that.
Yeah.
So.
And what's interesting in this is it does seem like they've been inside of this dome that Abensur created. It doesn't tell us how long, but at least long enough for people to not be as panicky about it.
It's been at least a few days. I mean, it seems like they've, the general store is open and they have some kind of barter system so that they can still buy and sell goods and things like that. So it's been at least a few days.
John Stewart and another character are standing out in the road near the dome wall, drinking coffee and talking about the idea that a van pulls up and they kind of talk it through, oh, they're trying to figure out what it is. Oh, and then they get distracted and they turn around and go back because apparently this kind of has that effect on people where they're redirected, and then immediately forget they ever saw this dome.
Yeah, because the folks in Evergreen, they can see outside of the dome, and it says something about, it's almost like if anybody drives up, it's almost like they get compelled to just simply turn around and go the other way, and no harm, no foul. But
yeah, it's an interesting thing, but they are kind of they've seen it enough times, they know kind of what's going on. But John Stewart does discover something about the dome that is very interesting and fits in line with what we know about classic Green Lantern. But like always, there's a little bit of a twist on it. but it's still really cool when you go, oh yeah, of course, like that
Yeah.
makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
I like I said, I felt so stupid. I was like, "Oh, of course it's this." Yeah.
Yeah. But also we get meanwhile Hal Jordan is still facing off against Joe Mullen in this place where we left him at the end of the first issue. They're in that diner, and it seems like the Black Hand has now his dialogue has went from being a regular speech balloon to now it's black.
Yeah.
It does seem like he's becoming more taken over by the Black Hand, and there's a little bit of a scuffle between the two that I think is very interesting. And are we seeing the creation of Hal Jordan as the big bad in this? I
Mhm.
don't know, but it's very very interesting. There's another reference in this to a DC character that's not related to Green Lantern that is really cool. And I'll say the most how it's done is almost like a Funko Pop,
Yeah.
and I was so happy to see it. And I'm like, yep, that character. I want to see what the absolute version of them
Right.
are. And also, I'll say Abin Sur does reappear, and he's still judging people.
Yep. He's still
And
scary.
it's very interesting. It does kind of play off. So in a previous issue, Abin Sur was like, "I'm gonna judge you," and then he just disappeared. Now he comes back and he's like, "Judgment passed,"
Yep.
and I was like, "Oh, like so this is an immediate thing. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if he thinks about it or whatever, but it does. You don't know when he's going to enact his judgment. And this is getting pretty intense.
Mhm.
And I'm very interested to see where this goes. Because if they don't figure out a way to drop this dome, like, I don't think any of them's going to make it out of
Right,
here
right.
alive. So, very cool issue. I think the art is even getting better because there's some scenes, especially with Hal Jordan as Black Hand, they're just really cool. And yeah, a final page that's like, oh, what direction is this going now?
Mhm.
So really, really cool issue of Absolute Green Lantern. Highly recommend. And I do love, even though they did talk about, Joe as the primary Green Lantern in this, it does feel like an ensemble piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody kind of gets equal billing in this, and I think that's really cool. And definitely helps make it feel like a core, even though it's not that.
Right.
So here's your A cover. We've got some cool variants. So we have this Juliet NECA variant with John Stewart. We've got a Michael Walsh kind of negative variant with Joe and Hal. We've got a 1 in 25 Malavia variant with Joe. That's cool. That's we're selling for $14.99. We've got a 1 in 50 of the cover from before that we're selling for $29.99 with John Stewart.
All right, I've got another cool one from DC. This is Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2, number 1. And this is written by Brian Bucoletto and the artist by Christian Deuce, who is the team from the previous Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong series. And this one starts with Amanda Waller pulling the Suicide Squad together for the purposes of developing a defense system against Titans, Godzilla and Kong, and those kinds of things, but a system that doesn't rely on metahumans, because I mean, Amanda Waller hates metahumans at this
Yeah.
point. We're seeing it in all kinds of different stories, and then so they're gonna do something like that. We also see the wedding of Barry Allen and Iris West. So that's really nice. Everyone's having a good time there until they learn that Lex, who is with the Suicide Squad, has gone missing. Because he was supposed to be in prison, and they're like, we can't find him anywhere. They trace the last known location of his armor um, to this base somewhere, and they find this portal that goes to the legendary Earth. The legendary Earth meaning the Earth that Godzilla and Kong exist on. Basically, the Earth from the movies.
Yeah.
Basically, is what the legendary Earth is. So on that Earth, that's where Waller and her team have gone to, and they let's just say they're conducting an experiment there for this defense initiative that they're trying to create. They're experimenting on stuff there because that's where the Titans are, right? They've got to test it against something, right? So they're over there doing that, and the Justice League, they also go through this portal to the legendary Earth, and that's where things really, really get started. And I will say this has a very shocking ending that I did not see coming from even a mile away. And this is different from the first series because in the first series, Godzilla and some of the other kaiju they came to Earth.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Earth Prime because there was some things that didn't line up with the other DC books, but they came to like DC's Earth, and now everybody on DC's Earth is going into the legendary Earth. So that's a little bit different, which is interesting because that offers the opportunity for more confrontations and conflicts between DC characters and kaiju.
There's a lot more there.
Yeah, there's a lot more there, right? Last time it was just like Superman and a bunch of heroes up against Godzilla and things like that. But now that they're on the legendary Earth, there's all kinds of big monsters everywhere. So a very good start to this. A bit of a setup issue, but I love the first one. I can't wait to see this one get fleshed out some more. So we have our A cover right here, and there's some cool variants for this too. This is the awesome. Is this a wraparound? No.
Nope.
This is the Dan Mora cover with the Suicide Squad and King Ghidorah, who is not in this issue, but maybe he'll show up at some point. This is the Alan Kwan variant. We have this Gabriel Hardman variant. And then we have this blank variant, so you can draw your own heroes versus kaiju. And this is the John Jang variant. Nice foil cover on that one. Is that a wraparound?
No.
It looks like it might. Maybe it's a connecting or
I
something.
think it's connecting.
Okay, yeah.
Well, next up for me, speaking of giant size things, this is Ghost Rider versus Galactus #1. I believe this is our penultimate issue in our J. Michael
Right.
Straczynski characters teaming up series. This is, of course, written by J. Michael Straczynski, and the art is by Juan Ferreira. And this is pretty cool. So this is set in the late 70s, and Ben Grimm is out on the streets confronting a guy he knows murdered somebody. And it's kind of one of those classic, like, what are you going to do? Shoot me? Like, it's not going to take any effect or whatever. And he's just about got him where he wants him, and he's going to, I guess, pound him and then take him to the police or something like that. When all of a sudden Ghost Rider shows up, and because this man had killed people before, Ghost Rider gives him the old penance stare and leaves him as a dust pile on the ground, which, all that sounds kind of extreme. There's a lot of humor in this.
There is.
Like
Ghost Rider almost acts wildly out of character because he's kind of jokey, and this felt a little weird.
Well, like the guy gets turned to like a pile of ash, and then the store that he's out in front of, like the owner has to come and like sweep it up, and he's like, "Oh, always with this."
It's like it's gonna get stuck in my shoe or something like that.
So there's a lot of humor in this, but when this happens, Ben Grimm's like, "Hey, do you have time for lunch?" Or I'm gonna go do a try on a suit because I'm going out. Will you come with me? And Ghost Rider's like, sure, I guess so. And while they're doing all that, Ben Grimm kind of finds out from Ghost Rider, what's the extent of your powers? Like, can you be stopped by technology or anything like that? And he's like, no, pretty much only supernatural stuff that's, as powerful as me or stronger could probably stop me. He's like, well, I've got an idea. Galactus has been, a real pain for all of us. And I've been thinking, he's killed a lot of people. Do you think you could, do your penance stare to Galactus? And at this point, he's Johnny Blaze. He's like, that seems extreme, and that's in space. I don't even know how to get there. And then Ben Grimm's like, you'll find a way. And so, next thing you know, Ghost Rider is hopping on a rocket and heading into space to face off against Galactus. And I'm going to say, this part is pretty cool because there is some action. Ghost Rider has a way of going eye to eye with Galactus.
Which I did not know he could do.
No, and how often do you actually see Galactus in like a fist fight?
Yeah.
There's not too many things that can do that. But what happens when maybe the penance stare doesn't work the way it's supposed to on Galactus? The Watcher shows up, and that's when this gets really kind of
existential.
Yeah. about the nature of beings and all of that.
And the universe, and yeah.
Yeah, your place in the universe and all of that. It goes from one thing to a pretty wildly different idea that has some big celestial pages, full pages with the Watcher talking and all of that. Um, so this was really interesting. I think I liked it a little bit more than you did,
Yeah.
but
It just was a little weird for me. It just felt
it
off, you
gets
know.
very weird. But I thought there were some really cool visual moments in it. I always love seeing Galactus, and I thought it had a pretty sweet final page that actually was kind of heartwarming.
Yeah.
That kind of brought it back down to earth. That I thought was done very well. So but I like this idea. You know, whether you love an issue and then you don't like an issue or whatever. Uh, I think we both had issues in this that we loved and issues that we
Uh-huh.
didn't love as much. But I love this idea of these one-shot
Yeah.
stories that you just explore kind of things you've never seen before, like Galactus and Ghost Rider, or Captain America and Volstagg, or whatever they bring to it. I commend them because it's interesting and it's fresh and it's
Yeah.
where else can you get a story like this? It doesn't really
Right.
work itself into a Fantastic Four story or anything like that.
I will say my favorite part, is Ben's getting fitted for a suit, a tux, or no, not a tux, but a suit. And he's like, they're like, how does it feel? He's like, it feels all right, but it's a little bit tight in a fine china. I laughed at that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the Ben Grimm in here is great.
Yeah.
Like he's really fun. Yeah, so I liked it. But I do think like this is another one of those of like, wow, this is a different, thought-provoking
Yeah.
style issue. So there's your A cover by Terry Dodson. I think our last is like Spider-Man in the Sinister 17 or Sinister
It says
16.
like Spider-Man versus everyone or something like that. Yeah.
Who knows what that's gonna
Yeah.
be. And we have a variant for it. This is your Juan Ferreira variant, and let me say, this kind of happens. So take that as you
Yeah.
will. But yeah, Galactus, is at least for a minute on his back foot, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, I have got Absolute Superman number 8, and this is the start of a brand new story arc called Superman: Son of the Demon, and the team is back. So you've got Jason Aaron, of course he's been writing it, but Rafa Sandoval is back. So you've got your original creative team from the first arc are back for this new one, and in this arc, Superman is going on the offensive to try to track down Chris Smith, who we know as Peacemaker, for the atrocities that Chris Smith committed in Pakistan. But before he does that, he goes to Smallville, and we see Superman interact with Martha a little bit, and that gives us a little bit more of an idea as to what their relationship is like. We got that one issue where we saw his arrival at the farm and what his life was like on the farm, but in this little interaction, we get a little bit clearer of a picture of what is his relationship to Martha, what does he think of her, what does she think of him, that kind of thing. But it's not long after that that Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen both catch up to him, but they are on very different sides. We know it's been established that Jimmy Olsen is part of the Omega Man, and of course we know that Lois is part of the Lazarus Corporation. But even though Lois is not there as part of the Lazarus Corporation, she just wants to talk to Superman some more, get some answers about some things. But just because she's not there on official Lazarus business doesn't mean that Lazarus doesn't know where she is. And it's not long after that before the three of them are surrounded by a squad of Peacemaker troops that were sent by the Lazarus Corporation. And amongst those troops is a very upgraded Chris Smith. And so all of that happens within just the first few pages, and I'm not going to tell you anything else that happens after that, other than we get some really cool action. We see Superman do some things that we've never really seen him do before, which is actually really cool. And there's also something else that's introduced in this that I think will make life a little bit more challenging for Superman going forward in this universe that we haven't really seen so much of yet.
So an opening scene where someone throws something off a building that I was pretty shocked to see that
Yeah,
happen.
we do see another character and just how ruthless they are.
Yeah, and I've got some questions about how certain things work in the Absolute Universe because it was not what we traditionally expect.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
say
pretty
that.
dark, but it does set up kind of this chapter of Absolute Superman and who he's probably going to be going up against pretty soon.
Yeah, so I loved it. This is still my favorite of the all the absolute books. I still think it's the one that has the that carries the most weight, is doing the biggest thing. Well, I don't know. Absolute Wonder Woman's getting pretty intense
Yeah.
too. But I love this. I love the art, the colors. The colors I think have been on this book have been better than any of the other absolute books. I think the colors on this are just insane. So yeah, another great issue of Absolute Superman. If you have been enjoying the series, you are sure to like this one as well. So we have our A cover right there, and we got some cool variants. This is the one I pre-ordered. This is the Clayton Crane variant. We have our Brandon Peterson variant.
It's interesting he can hold that cape considering it's just made of dust.
Yeah, maybe it can sort of solidify
Yeah.
and dissipate. And then this is from Jess Spokes. This is the 1 in 25 that we are selling for $14.99.
Next up, I've got a very exciting issue. This is Red Hulk number 5, and my first note is Red Hulk is back. So a lot of this issue has been kind of building up, or a lot of the series has been building up to the return of Red Hulk. Even though it's been a great series, there hasn't been a lot of Red Hulk. It's mostly been in flashbacks or kind of inside of Thunderbolt Ross's mind.
Between this book and Ultimate Spider-Man, Marvel loves to put out books that does not feature the character that's in the title.
But still, this has been an awesome kind of escape from a prison escape
Mm.
story. But because of the events that happened at the end of the last issue, we've got a maybe one of the most powered up Red Hulks that we've ever had. And this is what we've been waiting for. This is all out action as Red Hulk is back, and all the Doombots you want are now crushed into nothing because
Yeah.
he goes all out. And it's so cool because every time you're like, oh no, this is gonna be bad. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of what they were afraid would happen
Right.
if he got his Red Hulk powers back. He even does his like laser eye thing that we were like, can he do that?
Can he do that? When was that?
Apparently,
Yeah.
he's just like, for whatever, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And but it is awesome. It is so cool to see him at full strength, just rampaging. This is what we want out of a Hulk book.
Yep.
But I mean, because this happens, this draws the attention of a lot of people, and we'll say that even people that Red Hulk thought might be allies, he's real angry with them as well.
Mhm.
So this does end in a very interesting place, but I love that we've got a full issue of Red Hulk, and I think we're going to be getting more here on out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a great issue, probably the best issue so far of Red Hulk, and I love that it's just getting better as it goes.
Yeah, and I'll say about this, in a week that has a bunch of new number ones from Marvel and DC and a bunch of high caliber books, this is my number 2 pick of the week behind Imperial. Like, if Imperial didn't come out this week, this would be my pick of the week. It's that awesome.
Yeah.
Even behind some of the big new books that we got, this was fantastic.
Yeah, this was a fun read. It was exciting.
Yeah.
It was great. So there is your A cover.
Double page spreads and all kind. Oh my gosh.
We've got this amazing John Boy Myers cover.
Mhm.
Him using his heat vision.
When did he start
I
doing
need
that?
to do some research to find out when that became a thing. Maybe it's like how Superman had to like dissipate some of his energy
Maybe,
when he
yeah.
explodes. Like that, maybe that's what it is. We also have this Danny Earls variant.
And I'm so excited that that's an ongoing, because
Yes.
when this story is over, we're gonna get more. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's great. Okay, let me make a note here, and then we will move on to Ultimate Wolverine number 6. So almost this entire issue takes place inside Logan's mind, because remember at the end of last issue, the opposition actually took him down and captured him and took him back to their base. So most of this issue takes place in his mind, as there is a member of the opposition who is a character that longtime X-Men fans will recognize very quickly.
Yeah.
This character is trying to basically deprogram him, take out all the, undo
The
all
Winter
the Winter
Soldier
Soldier
stuff,
programming. Yeah. And that is a vast oversimplification of it, but it's very visual. We see Logan, like breaking chains, and just to give you an idea, there's a part where he pops his claws, but instead of claws, it's chains that come out. So it's very metaphorical, that kind of thing, and he's fighting villains and he's fighting himself, and
Yeah.
there's just like it's all this visual representation of like the things that he has to fight.
Breaking down the barriers in his
Right,
mind.
right. So we do get a little bit of this at the end that is set in the real world outside of his mind. And we do see more members of the opposition, including a few other well-known X-Men characters that we've never seen in this universe
Yeah.
before. So it was cool to see those characters. And they are waiting to see if this deprogramming worked. Maybe we get an answer, maybe we don't. You'll have to wait and see. But yeah,
They're all in a real bad place if it didn't work.
right. Yeah. If it doesn't work, they are probably screwed at this point. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, another cool issue of Ultimate Wolverine. If it does work, well, I mean that's going to change the game for this series going forward, I think. And plus, I can't wait to see like the revenge that is he going to be out for revenge against Colossus and Magic, and that's like it's really cool.
There is a thing too about the character that was trying to deprogram him. There's some backup pages that are like text and everything,
right,
where it seems like there's a story there
yeah,
that is probably going to be explored at some point that is a familiar character but done in a completely new way.
Yeah, you've never seen them like this before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our A cover right there. And we have this Lionel Francis U variant. I will say that's not who we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about somebody else. And this is our Sanford Green cover.
That one's really just nice and clean.
And then we have this 1 in 25. It's also from Lionel Francis Hugh, but it's a different color. This is the 1 in 25 that we're selling for $19.99. You don't really see Gambit or Kitty in this one. Like I said, most of it is inside Logan's mind, and we only see a few other characters.
Yeah, you don't
at the
even
very
get
end.
speech balloons until the end. It's mostly just like little
narration,
free-floating narration captions. Well, next up for me, I have The Sixth Gun, Road to the Sixth, #1. And I always feel like when we get to books like this, I'm like trying to sell people on it.
Yeah.
But because I think it's so cool. So The Sixth Gun was a series that came out. What are they celebrating, their 15th anniversary?
Yeah, I think so.
A fantastic series by
the original Six Gun series is awesome. I haven't read all that much of it, maybe a couple story arcs. It's so good.
It's like one of the ones like I haven't finished it, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever read.
Yeah.
It is so good. So it's by Cullen Bunn. The art's by Brian Hurt. The colors are by Bill Crabtree, who you may know has worked on Invincible for a while. It is the coolest mixing of fantasy and western, and just like kind of
supernatural, maybe a little bit of horror thrown
like
in,
Lovecraftian horror.
But a western.
But just every page feels like fresh and like I've never seen that before. It's so much fun. And so yeah, I forgot how many issues are the original series.
It's like 60 or something like that.
Yeah. Plus there was like a mini series that came out and everything. So you may be coming into this thinking, because this is a one shot that is setting up the new Six Gun that's starting, I believe, in July, thinking, oh well, I probably got to go read all of that before. And I will say, like, yes, this does, this doesn't give you a full, like, here's their story so far, anything like that. But this is such a cool world that I just think you could jump into it and just, like, have fun. Like,
I feel like maybe a basic knowledge of what the original series was about, or maybe even what the first story arc was about. Just if, at least if you even know, oh, it's about these 6 mystical supernatural guns, and like
they each, like, when you fired them had a certain power. Like one had basically it's like they're all revolvers, but like one has like feels like a cannonball, and like some are like more supernatural with like ghosts. And,
one could reanimate the dead. One could allow the wielder to see in the future. That kind of thing.
They got really like crazy, and now have like kind of these runes engraved on them and everything.
They're almost like the Infinity Gems, because they each have their own power, but if you bring them all together, the wielder of them all is like crazy powerful. Yeah.
But all set in the Old West.
Right.
But also there's like snake cowboys.
Yeah.
And like really almost like Masters of the Universe type, like weird characters and everything. Well, getting into this one, this has 3 stories that I think are all going to play a part in the new series. So the first one is set 600 years before the original series, And we find out, and you see it on the cover here, kind of in medieval times, that they weren't always these revolvers. They were other kinds of weapons. At least in this one, we see that one of them was a sword.
So that is one of them?
I believe it's one of them that they.
Because I wasn't 100% sure about that.
I think the weapons almost get reincarnated as once they're all brought together and whatever happens, and then they're recreated as something else.
I mean, I hope that's the case because that sounds really cool. So.
Because this one has, like, it's a flaming sword, but it kind of has, like, Ghost Rider's powers. Like, it's flame, it has, like, the flames of perdition in it and stuff. Like, it's crazy. And we see this knight, who's a wielder of them, go up against these kind of goblin-like characters, and they're all being led by a leader called the Grey Witch, which is, it's cool, and it's just a very short, like, snippet of this time frame. The second story is set after the original Six Gun series. Like I said, I haven't finished that, but I still didn't have a hard time following what was going on. With a character named Mr. Belting, who finds a strange, like, Western hotel. Like, if you were going through the Grand Canyon and this just nice hotel was sitting right in the center of it, where he goes in, and someone has been expecting him there, and he's delivering an item to them, but he's not allowed to talk about the item with, like, the guy at the front desk. And you do see all the things that he had to go through to get this item. And then when you see who he's delivering it to, it's like, well, I want to know more about that character because it's crazy. And then this third story just says it's set elsewhere. And two hunters, kind of like trackers or whatever, are traveling the crossroads. And in this universe, the crossroads are, you can get almost anywhere by this. And they end up in a very different setting than the Old West, looking for a man, but they find some monsters instead. And my final note is, this is an amazing issue. It reminded me of how much I love Six Gun, why Cullen Bunn got on my radar in the first place.
That was my first exposure to Cullen Bunn.
And I read this and I was like, I need to go read all the stuff he does. Anytime Cullen Bunn, Brian Hurt, Bill Crabtree work together, it is fantastic. And they put out great kind of omnibus editions, ultimate editions of the original Six Gun.
Those are what I have, and after reading this, I wanted to drop everything I was doing and just go pick up the first one and just start reading it. And
it is one of the most fun things ever. It needs to. I know it was adapted into a pilot at one point that wasn't very good. Oof. This needs to have like a Westworld meets Game of Thrones style HBO series because it'd be fantastic. So cool. All that being said, this is your A cover. And we also have this cover by Greenwood, and that is your character from the second story.
All right, next up, All New Venom number 7. This was still trucking along. I shouldn't like this series because there's so much weirdness to it, but I really enjoy this a lot.
The art is incredible in this. Carlos Gomez maybe draws one of the best Mary Janes ever.
So in this one, Flash Thompson, we saw him sort of creeping outside of Mary Jane's window in the last one. So he's in this. He talks to Mary Jane about the predicament that they're both in because SCAR, which is the organization that he works for, and I don't remember what it stands for, but they are wanting him to bring in Venom, or else they will arrest Dylan Brock. So, but Flash doesn't want Dylan to get arrested, but he also doesn't want to bring in Venom because Venom is bonded to Mary Jane, who was his friend, So they do come up with a plan to try to get around this, to maybe try to fool SCAR a little bit, but maybe it doesn't go quite as planned. And so they're dealing with that. Meanwhile, Rick is hanging out with Robbie Robertson, and Rick still doesn't know that Mary Jane is Venom yet. Like, it's only a small few people that do know that she's bonded with Venom. And he actually thinks that he might be Venom because he keeps losing time. He says he keeps, like, blanking out, and he'll be here, but then all of a sudden he'll be across town, and it'll be hours later. He doesn't know how he got there. So he thinks that maybe he's Venom.
And it's a really great look at the time that he was, like, was gamma powered, too. Because they talk a lot about, like, do you feel like it's like that time when you were overcome and all that? And that's kind of why it scares him.
He mentions testing his blood for gamma radiation every day to see if that's what it is. And it's not. So he's like, maybe I'm Venom. Of course, we, the reader, know that that's not quite the case. And there is another very well known Spider Man villain who is working with Scar in maybe like a research capacity. I'm not really sure yet. But he has a confrontation with Sleeper, who we know that that's the symbiote that's bonded to Rick Jones right now. Um, my last note says it feels really weird that Peter is not involved in any of this.
Yeah.
You have another, like I said, you have a well-known Spider-Man villain who is now working with this organization to try to bring in Venom, who is bonded with Mary Jane, and Peter is.
These are all people who orbit Peter's life.
Yeah, and he is blissfully unaware of all this. It just feels like, I guess that's my only complaint with the book is like, he should be the first one to know any of this, right? And he doesn't, so I don't know if he ever will. But
also, Dylan Brock, once again,
roasting Paul.
Roast Paul, so good.
Yeah, because unfortunately Paul is in this, but a lot of his appearances, a lot of the panels he's in, he's on the receiving end of Dylan's insults and things like that. So if we have to endure Paul, at least we get to see him taken down a peg or two by a kid. So this
and Dylan's story in this is really interesting too, because
Yeah.
he's still trying to figure out who Venom is.
Right.
It's like he's a couple issues behind us.
That's right. Yeah.
Who it is.
Yeah. So there is our A cover right here with Agent Anti-Venom and Venom. We have. I want this story right here. This is our Ken Lashley Bring on the Bad Guys variant. I want to see Venom fight Abomination. This is not. Abomination's not in this, but this is just that series of variant covers. We have this really awesome Baldion variant. This was labeled as a spoiler variant, but I don't really know why. It's a very nice homage to Amazing Spider-Man Annual 21, the marriage issue. And then
Mary Jane does not get married.
She does not get it. No, she doesn't. And then this is the 1 in 25 Paco Medina variant that we're selling for $19.99.
And there's a really cool moment here where Flash talks to the symbiote through Mary Jane.
I like that.
And her
part.
eyes turn black.
Yeah.
And it gets a little creepy. And I don't know. I thought that was really, really well done.
Yep.
Okay, next up I have a new book called Be Not Afraid. This one's really cool. This is by Jude Ellison, S. Doyle, and Lissandro Esterin. And this is, I don't know what this would remind me of, but it's kind of set, it's hard to tell exactly, but it's, maybe a couple hundred years ago in America and everything, but a lot of farmers and that kind of stuff. Kind of a little puritanical looking. So we meet Cora Rims, and she has a child named Jordy. And right off the bat, you can tell something's weird. The way she's narrating this is she was pregnant with this baby, and then suddenly it was just standing in the doorway.
Oh, I remember talking about this on Comics from the Future. This sounded
just
creepy.
As a little boy.
Yeah.
And he's real scary. I guess it reminds me of that episode of Twilight Zone where the kid who sends people to the cornfield, if you make him upset type thing, this kid with a lot of power. So you do learn who his father is later on in it. I won't give it away, but or how he was conceived is very interesting. So you can already tell this is an evil little kid, and you do see kind of some of his life up until the point of the main part of the story where he's 17, and he just comes in very kind of giddy, and he's like, "I made old man whatever down the street chew his own hands off." It looked like he was eating chicken wings, basically.
It sounds like he'd get along with Pranky from Hyde Street.
Yeah, very much that same kind of like smiling while he's talking about terrible things. And his mom is like praise of like, I know I prayed for a child, but now we have to do something about this, because it seems like almost maybe like he has a little birthday party or just like a cake or whatever. And he's like, "How old am I going to be, Mom?" She's like, "You're going to be 17. He's like, "That's right," or whatever. It almost feels like when he becomes 17, like that's the cut, like something bad's going to happen. So we'll say she prays and someone shows up, and it seems like she's gonna have some help if her son needs to be stopped. It's a I didn't know going into it, from the cover, it's like, this looks like it's going to be creepy, but I don't know if I'll, how much I'll like it or whatever. I really like this, and I thought it was pretty disturbing, like scary disturbing in a
Yeah.
way I know they're aiming for. So if you like, kind of a dark, supernatural horror, that kind of thing, definitely check this one out. Because that's like his silhouette back there. He wears his wide brimmed hat.
Mm.
He always has a kind of a creepy smile, and that's his mom. Very, very, very weird, but very cool. So there is your A cover. And we also have this variant by our good friend Abigail Joe Harding.
Oh, nice.
Oh, and I've also got. I didn't realize I had some incentives for
I was
it.
gonna say, I thought.
So we have a unlockable variant. This is the Muramasa one for $6.99. This is the A cover, and then there's also this Olivetti cover. This is a 1 in 15. We're selling for $8.99.
All right, next up we've got Endless Night #1. This is a new series from Mad Cave. This is written by Mark London. The art is by Tom Derenick. And this is the first crossover of the Underworld universe, which is a shared universe that Mad Cave has across 3 different lines. They have the Revolution 9, Hour of the Wolf, and Exit City. All 3 of those are written by Mark London, and all 3 of those take place in this same universe. And this is about Axel Black. He is this tech billionaire, and he sends his operatives to Exit City, which is this city that was actually manufactured off the coast of California. So it's kind of like an island unto itself. It's not connected to anything. Um, and he sends his operatives there to find a dangerous mystical artifact so that he can join the Order of Nine, who is the sort of clandestine group from Revolution 9. They've been around for centuries, and they're the one who kind of like pull the strings for a lot of things. They have assassins and things like that. So this billionaire wants to join that group, and they say, well, if you want to join our group, you can, but you need to bring us this artifact because they want to do some bad things with it, basically. And it's going to take the combined forces of Velveteen, who is the assassin from Revolution 9, Owen Blackwood, who is your supernatural protagonist from Hour of the Wolf, and then detectives McCormick and Miller, who are your protagonists from Exit City. They all have to come together to prevent this from happening, to prevent the Order of Nine from getting their hands on this artifact and doing bad things with it. And I'll say this does a really, really good job of bringing together 3 completely different type of books. This Revolution 9 is like a spy espionage story with assassins and things like that. Hour of the Wolf is very supernatural, and then Exit City is feel like it's like more of a crime noir series. Those couldn't be 3.
I was about to say, I thought all those were in separate universes.
Yeah, they couldn't be more different, but they all take place in the same universe, and this story does find a way to give them all a reason to come together and take on this big challenge. So so if you read those other books from Mad Cave, now this is like their big. It's almost like their big Avengers moment, right? They're all coming together for a big story, so it's really cool. So we have our A cover right here, and we have a Declan Shalvey variant as well, and that is Owen Blackwood from um, Hour of the Wolf, and he's got like this big like skull shield. It's pretty neat.
Well, next up, I've got DC Pride 2025. So celebrating Pride Month, they are doing their annual big book anthology style with a bunch of creators. Too many to list them all here, but this one's interesting because usually they're kind of couple page stories that aren't connected or anything. This one actually does have kind of a overall connected story that I thought was really interesting. I didn't get to read this as in depth as I wanted because this is a really thick book. I did not expect it to be that
It's
thick.
square bound.
It's square bound.
Yeah.
This was like I was reading some of the books today, and then I got to this one. I was like, I do not have time to read this. But I did read a good portion of it and then skimmed through the rest of it. But it does start. It takes place in this old kind of bar in Gotham that was a very popular queer space for people to come, and it's closing down. They are closing down all of a sudden, and a lot of its patrons from over the years have come to kind of pay their respects. There's like this big wall that apparently, like over the years, people would kind of like scratch different messages into and stuff. And we've got Alan Scott who's there, and he kind of talks about like this was the spot that I came back in like the 30s, and people are like, "You you were alive back then,"
Yeah.
type thing, which is always fun. But as these characters are kind of congregating there, something weird starts happening, and they all seem to like disappear, or they get, I guess teleported. We don't really know at first where they go, but it does seem like they are ending up in kind of an idealized version of their world. But maybe that's too good to be true. You'll have to read it to find out. I did think it's a really interesting concept. I liked it better than just these like little non-connected stories. This
Mm.
did feel like at least you had kind of the building blocks of the ones before it. And there's a bunch of different art styles, a bunch of different writers. And you've got characters like The Question. Renee Montoya was in this, which I always
Nice.
love seeing. Midnighter and Apollo story is really funny because I don't want to say it's like Archie, but it is very like, if you know Midnighter Apollo, there, especially Midnighter, he's a pretty brutal
Yeah.
character. And he has like this like happy wake up in the morning, this idealized like waving at the neighbors and stuff, and then when like somebody bad comes up, he like hits them and they turn into confetti. It's a really funny version. But you've got Harley Quinn, you've got Joe Mullen in here, Connor Hawk, Bunker, Blue Snowman, and you have a lot of characters featured in this. So I thought it was really fun. I would like to read this when I have some more time, because like I said, there's a lot to this. It is almost like reading a small trade paperback.
Mm.
But yeah, very cool. I love this cover with Alan Scott. So there is your A cover, and of course we've got a couple other covers. This is your, I think this is a Suzumaka, yeah, Suzumaka cover with Harley and Ivy, which look very different. Neither of them are in their traditional clothes. Uh, yeah, very interesting cover there. And then we also have this one, which is kind of like a Teen Beat magazine by Julia Reck, which is kind of fun to read all over it and see what they're saying.
All right, next up from Mad Cave again, I've got the Slasher's Apprentice #2. And in this one, Riley, who is our main character in this, she confronts the Hopton Valley Killer, who is the slasher that she is very enamored with. She confronts him and tells him that she actually wants to train with him because she's obsessed with him basically, and she's been studying him for years, knows all of his kills and everything like that. And he doesn't talk, but he reluctantly agrees after she tells him how she's actually helped him out on some of his kills without him knowing, and how she's observed some things that he's done very sloppily. She's like, "You've been doing this for a while, and you're starting to leave clues behind, and I'm having to come behind you
Clean
and
up
pick them,
your.
clean up. And you don't know that I've been doing that, but thanks to my efforts, you've been getting away with all this stuff, and I could be an asset to you. Please let me train with you," kind of thing. So, like I said, he reluctantly agrees to that, and she actually accompanies him to a fraternity house and kind of indirectly helps him murder the kids
Oh
there.
gosh.
So she's not really ready for this yet for the direct killing, but she can offer assistance, that kind of thing. So it's pretty crazy because she seems like this young, nice, innocent young girl, but she wants to be like this big giant slasher. So it's pretty twisted, but pretty interesting too. So this is our A cover, and that is the only cover that we have.
Well, next up, I've got Amazing Spider-Man #5. This is the last part of this first story arc of our new run of Amazing Spider-Man. Peter races to save Brian, his old friend and also new boss, from Hobgoblin, because he found out about what was going on with the soda brand that Hobgoblin was spiking with this stuff. And but Peter does kind of wonder what was Hobgoblin's master plan. Because this stuff in the soda gives people anxiety. Is like, are you just trying to make people more anxious? Like,
Yeah.
how is that going to pay off?
Yeah, because it doesn't affect him as much as it's affected Spider-Man throughout this, because he
Yeah.
got hit with a huge dose of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it is funny, like as he's trying to figure this out, you do find out why he was doing this, but I didn't even stop and think about it. I'm like, that is a good question. Like,
Yeah.
what's the end game
Yeah.
of this? But you do find out. And I don't want to give too much away. There's a lot of fun action as Spider-Man fights Hobgoblin. Great Pepe Larraz's art. And I'll say that this does end like with a nice kind of little bow on it. It feels very rare that we get a story now that doesn't immediately lead into another story.
Yeah, because we knew this was the end of this first story arc, but it's not like there's not like a page at the end that's it's like the end question mark or
Yeah.
anything like it wraps up, it's finished.
Yeah, it feels like you've got this story of Hobgoblin, these sodas that this is going on with. All of that is like, yeah, you've got a beginning and end to it, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, I think back in the day you would have more of those self-contained stories, and then when the next one started, it was like, and it's the next sunny bright day, and Peter's walking to work, or something like that. It would start fresh, and I do like that it's not always leading into the next thing and then the next thing. You do get, it's nice sometimes just to get some closure
Yeah.
to a thing. And I thought that was great for it. I'm interested to see what the next story arc is. I hate that Pepe Larraz won't be on art for the next one, the Hellgate story. But if they're going to be alternating back and forth, then hopefully we get back to a Pepe Larraz story later on.
There was a blurb in the back that says, Pepe Larraz is jumping ahead to the next story arc. So we're going to get John Romita Jr. for a few issues, and then Pepe Larraz will come back after that for, I guess, the third story arc.
Yeah, but as far as the first story arc, the first 5 issues of this go, I really enjoyed it. I think he draws an amazing Hobgoblin, and I'm looking forward to more.
That Hobgoblin was scary with his fire sword and his wings, and that's a great design.
And one of the ways that Peter, combats him, stops him one time, it just feels like very classic Spider-Man. That is really, really fun. So yeah, really, really cool issue. This is your A cover, which is a fantastic A cover. We've got.
I love covers where the logo gets messed up.
Yeah, we have the Bring on the Bad Guys cover where Spider-Man is fighting Crossbones.
I want that. We haven't seen Crossbones in forever. I want that story.
We have a Peach Momoko Marvel Rivals variant. I think that's for the new upcoming story that she's going to be doing. We've got a Joelle Jones cover, which Black Cat is not in this issue.
I think she will be in the next one.
I think she's in the next. I think she plays a pretty big part in the next story. We've got a Vecchio cover. We've got, so they call this the Mark Bagley spoiler variant, but yeah, Spider-Man fights Hobgoblin in it. We've known that's coming for the past 3 issues, so yeah, not too much of a spoiler, so I don't feel too bad about showing that. And then we have a 1 in 50 John Romita Jr. variant we're selling for $29.99.
That's a nice homage to, darn it, I don't remember, but
to other issue of Spider-Man.
An older issue of Spider-Man, right?
And then check this out. There is a 1 in 100 Pepe Larraz Virgin variant, even though the letters are still there because it was part of the art. It doesn't have the Marvel logo on there or the name, so it's Virgin that way. And we are selling it for $99.99, just under
$100.
Your catchphrase.
Yeah. All right, well, I've got Justice League, The Atom Project, number 6. Just wanted to tell you real quick about this because if you've been buying this series, you're not going to want to miss this because this is the final issue. We saw last issue that Captain Atom has been taken captive by the Legion of Doom, but they don't know that Ryan Choi has shrunk down real itty bitty and is with Captain Atom. And in this issue, he helps Captain Atom escape. And a lot of this issue is that escape attempt. And I can't really tell you too much else because it's the last issue. There is kind of sort of a resolution to all the power swapping shenanigans. If I'm being honest, it felt a little bit anticlimactic because this whole series was about them trying to figure out how to give everybody's powers back to the right people. And I don't know if I guess they figured out how to do that. I'm not sure, but
their series. We've seen them do it pretty easily,
right?
So it is funny that this is such a big deal.
And so this one has felt a little bit out of sync with a lot of the other DC books, but just want to let you know that it's out this week in case you've been buying the rest. I didn't want you to miss it. So there's our A cover right there, and this is our Aaron Bartling variant, and that's it.
Does Captain Atom get that costume? He's
no.
on so many covers with the shoulders.
Nope.
Okay. That was just a nice design.
Yep.
Next up, I've got Star Wars Jedi Knights number 4. Once again, I love this series. I love this kind of one and done style they're doing for this, as it's kind of a fun team up book. But this one, I think, is really maybe my favorite issue so far. So they introduced us to a character named Phaedra, a mysterious young woman renowned for her elaborate criminal schemes. She has recently pulled off a daring robbery of the Galactic Bank of Coruscant, escaping with a fortune of Republic credits. So the Jedi are brought in to investigate this. But what they also find out was, and she didn't know this at the time, that the person she stole from, she just thought it was a senator or whatever, but was secretly a front, like a third party for Jabba the Hutt's fortune. So she actually stole from a big criminal
Oops.
overlord, and now there's been a bounty put out on her. So we get now the bounty hunters, Bane Malar, which is a pretty deep cut character that actually is in the movies. You see him, but he's never called by name. He's just walking around in a scene. But I love that he showed up in here because there's not too many appearances of him in comics. Zam Wessel, who I love, and we don't get enough of her in anything. She's had like a one shot and maybe appeared once or twice in comics, but for such a cool character from Attack of the Clones, it's great to see her. We've got Aura Singh, and of course, you see on the cover, Jango Fett plays a part in this, but maybe in a different way than you expect. Plus, Qui Gon Jinn and Shak Ti are sent to find Phaedra as well, and you've got all of those hunting her as she's trying to escape from them. They get to Nar Shaddaa, which is a great another kind of expanded universe planet that's like Coruscant but way more criminal. And I'll say this also brings in some of the story elements from issue number 1 that we haven't really seen, but we do know they were alluded to we're going to be coming back later. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this issue and I give it my highest regards. It is awesome. Star Wars Jedi Knights number 4. And once again, this story that's in this about her and the stealing all this and everything is wrapped up in this issue. So I would just love way more of those. I do love your big epic story arc,
Yeah.
but I do also like
Character pieces.
just the character pieces.
Yeah.
It'll just you get it all in one. We've got the lightsaber variant for this one, the Obi-Wan. We've got our Chris Sprouse Force Awakens 10th anniversary variant. And we've got this Ganichow Pride Month variant. And we have a really cool 1 in 25 Rosanus variant. We're selling for $19.99 with kind of your whole cast of characters from this issue.
Oh, I thought that next one was
Nope.
one too. Okay. Okay. Well, the last one for me is Daredevil number 22, and I just wanted to talk about this one real quick because I've been really enjoying this new story arc. If I'm being honest, the first 19 issues of this series didn't do a whole lot for me, but then when issue 20 rolled around, started a new story arc with a new artist, Jose Luis Suarez, and a much more like grounded story. It's not Daredevil trying to exorcise demons out of his previous his some of his Rose Gallery. This is it's so cool. Like I said, this is the final issue of this story arc, and much like Spider-Man, this wraps up with a nice bow, right? It actually I think it even says like the end at the end of it. So it's only been 3 issues. Daredevil does take on the villain who is behind this fungus that has spread all over the city and has been hurting people. You see him on the cover there. His name is Lion's Mane. I think maybe we saw him like on the very last page of the last issue. So this would be his first full appearance. But we also learn who he really is, his true identity, and it's interesting. I'll just say that. But yeah, just a really cool. There's lots of good action between Daredevil and this new villain. It's like it's neat. The artwork is great. I love Daredevil in the black armor. I do think he's going back to the red armor in the next issue, and I think Taskmaster may show up for a new story arc. That's not spoiling here. That's just like the solicitations later. But yeah, I just want to let you know. I just wanted to sing the praises of this new run of Daredevil because it's been really, really good. So this is our AA cover, and we have this Parator Bring on the Bad Guys variant with I'm not sure
Is
who
that
that is.
Bush?
Bushmaster?
Bushmaster?
Maybe. But yeah, there's that cover, and then there is this awesome Jorge Fornes variant.
And lastly, for me, just want to mention Secret Six #4. This was a really cool issue, mostly because I am such a big Catman fan,
Yeah.
and this is a pretty Catman-centric issue. So the team of the Secret Six gets separated after the villain reveal in the last issue. John Kent actually flies out because one of the characters said, "You need to save that person." We've still got to figure out why.
Right.
But John Kent basically crash lands somewhere with Catman. And it's really interesting because part of this is John Kent being like, why have you been with a Deadshot so much? Like, what's the, what, like, the original Secret Six is broken up. Why have you all still been hanging around? And Catman basically tells the story of, like, why when Secret Six disbanded before, he stayed with Deadshot. And you get this great, like, Catman's wearing his classic costume, and you see like a little mission they went on together and stuff, and you do kind of find out what that's all about and setting up what Catman wants out of this story, which is really cool, and I can't wait to see. I kind of hope it happens. I don't think it will.
Yeah.
But yeah, he also is not a big fan of Amanda Waller, so.
Right.
Yeah, really cool, and yeah, just a great Catman-centric issue. You can see the Catmobile,
Yep.
which love that. So yeah, great issue, great art in this one as well. So there is your A cover. We also have this Laura Braga cover. I think this is the one I got with Dreamer. And we have this Lierix cover with Black Alice. I think doing the Wednesday dance. And that is it. This was a big week with a lot to talk about, but thank you so much for watching. Let us know if you made it to the end, and let us know what you're most excited to read. What are your thoughts and theories and all that good stuff? We would love to hear them and talk about them and bring them up next time. Stay tuned for our next show coming up on Wednesday, where we tell you about some of the books that you can pre-order by the weekend. And like always, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that, because it would mean so much to us. It's a little easy click for you, but it means the world to us, and it helps me sleep better at night. So again, thank you so much for watching. Head over to infinityflux.net and start ordering these books while supplies last. They'll be, yeah, that's what the kids do. And they'll be ready on a Wednesday. So until next time, see ya.